Chapter 1851. A tossed stone raises 1,000 ripples. There was a high possibility that the Star Palace Master had died. After this piece of news was spread to the Xianxia Tower, it was further spread to the whole eternal chaotic world in an instant. A tossed stone had raised 1,000 ripples. The Sanctuary Alliance and the experts in all the powerhouses of the eternal chaotic world burst into an uproar at once. Of course, after getting the piece of news, many experts doubted the authenticity of it right away. After all, many people knew how frightening the Star Palace Master was. Although he was ranked 30 in the Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, if he were to go crazy, only great emperors could stop him. How would such a powerful existence die so easily? Moreover, even the Xianxia Tower said that there was a high possibility that he had died. This meant that the Xianxia Tower was unable to confirm it for real, probably because of the fact that no one had seen him dying nor seen his body. It was just a guess. As it was only a guess, it was naturally unable to convince everyone. However, the basis for such a guess from the Xianxia Tower was indeed worth pondering about. Firstly, there was no news from the Star Palace Master. No matter who tried to contact him, there would be no reply. This point had already been proven to be true. When quite a number of experts who possessed the transmission token of the Star Palace Master had obtained this piece of news, they tried to contact the Star Palace Master right away. However, there was no reply, and this was the same for the people who were extremely close to the Star Palace Master. Moreover, it was said that one of the great emperors from the higher-ups of the Sanctuary Alliance had tried to contact the Star Palace Master personally. However, there was no reply as well. Read more chapter on free web novel. This meant that the Star Palace Master was definitely in an extremely dangerous situation. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to not reply even to his good friends or a great emperor when one tried to get into contact with him. However, this alone was still not enough to confirm that the Star Palace Master had died. After all, there were some places with special space-time in the ancient Mystery Land where it would be normal for him to be uncontactable. Next, the Xianxia Tower mentioned the unusual activities of the lineage of Star over the past few years. In particular, Jian Wushuang's wanton massacre. With that, they made a guess, and this had really caused many people to harbor suspicions. Indeed, for the past few years, the lineage of Star had been unusual. For so many years, they had put up with the existence of enemies. However, ever since the Star Palace Master became uncontactable, they started to hunt down those enemies wantonly. There was Jian Wushuang, who was extremely talented. Previously, he had remained silent and laid low for 6,000 years. However, without any warnings, he had displayed his talents abruptly again. This was really challenging other people's level of tolerance toward him. In the Sanctuary Alliance, there were probably many people who did not wish to see him growing to such a frightening state. Hence, it would be best for him to remain silent and lay low during this period of time. As for revealing his talents of his own accord, that was considered stupid. Why would Jian Wushuang choose such a stupid path? Moreover, for the past few years, the lineage of Star had been secretly using all kinds of techniques to recruit some experts. Although there were no agreements made during the recruitment, the lineage of Star indeed had the intention to recruit experts. By adding all these factors together and thinking about it many times, it could not help but make many people suspect if the Star Palace Master had really died for real. Colored Glaze Sanctuary. Inside the Soaring Heaven King Palace. Emperor God Xianxia and the remaining Almighties in the Soaring Heaven King Palace had gathered together. All of you have probably heard about the news. Emperor God Xianxia looked down. According to my predictions, there is indeed an extremely high possibility of the Star Palace Master being dead. Great! The large number of Sir Gods below revealed delighted expressions. It should be known that when the Star Palace Master went on a killing spree many years ago, some of the experts that he had killed were from the Soaring Heaven King Palace as well. Back then, a grudge was born between the Soaring Heaven King Palace and the lineage of Star. After that, when the Soaring Heaven King Palace had fought with Jian Wushuang, they had suffered heavy losses. By adding this new grudge to the old enmity, the Soaring Heaven King Palace then detested the lineage of Star greatly. After getting to know that the Star Palace Master had died, they were naturally elated. Palace Master, with the lineage of Star losing the intimidation of the Star Palace Master, all the powerhouses will definitely come together and attack them. With that, our Soaring Heaven King Palace will be able to take revenge. Sir God Ching Fu clenched both his fists tightly and said, "Let's not rush things." Emperor God Xianxia shook his head. Big Brother has still not returned yet. Before we can confirm that the Star Palace Master has really died, we should not act recklessly. After all, if the Star Palace Master really goes crazy, he will be extremely frightening. Before Big Brother returns, the soaring Heaven King Palace is absolutely unable to stop him. Let's sit back and wait first. We shall think about it after the news has been confirmed. Before that, we only need to make preparations to take action. All right. Many people below nodded their heads earnestly. However, their hearts were filled with excitement that was difficult to conceal. Red Dragon Sanctuary, Evil Light Divine Sect. Dead. That old bastard is finally dead? An unusually evil, purple-armored youth, who was more than 3 meters tall, gave an earth-shaking roar and his voice resounded across the hall. At the bottom of the hall, tens of experts were gathered and they were extremely excited as well. It's great that he has died. It's really great that he has died. Back then, this old bastard killed a total of 4 almighties of our Evil Light Divine Sect in one go. Moreover, even the previous sect master died in his hands. This is the greatest humiliation that our Evil Light Divine Sect suffered ever since we were founded. However, it's a pity that our Evil Light Divine Sect has always had no way to take revenge. However, now, he's finally dead. Although he's dead, the lineage of Star that he founded is still there. Kill. Kill. Sect Master, let's take action immediately and destroy the lineage of Star. The eyes of some people were scarlet in color and they were filled with murderous intent. Let's not rush things. The unusually evil youth waved his big hands. We must definitely avenge Master. Also, we must get rid of the humiliation that our Evil Light Divine Sect has suffered. However, it is still too early now. Although the Vientiane Tower has spread the news of the Star Palace Master dying, there are still some disputes. As such, there needs to be another step of confirmation to determine whether the Star Palace Master is dead or alive. Before that, we cannot act recklessly. Wait. We have to wait. Let's wait until someone is unable to control themselves and take action first. After waiting for the news to be confirmed, it will still not be too late for us to take action. From now on, get someone to monitor each and every action of the lineage of Star tenaciously. The unusually evil youth's orders were made known to the lower levels quickly. The whole Sanctuary Alliance was already seething with excitement and many old bastards who had secluded themselves from the world were shocked by this piece of news. As for the lineage of Star, they naturally obtained this piece of news immediately. In a secret room in the Sword Star, Jian Wushuang was still trying to raise the level of his force of soul. After so many years, his force of soul had risen slightly. Just then, Palace Master, there's trouble. Hall Master Yuan sent a message over and his voice was filled with anxiety. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes at once. After that, he went out of seclusion straight away. In a hall which contained a vast void, Jian Wushuang and the other 3 hall masters were seated. The expressions of the 4 of them were extremely ugly. Jian Wushuang's hands were holding onto a token and the token contained a piece of news that the Vientiane Tower had spread at a shocking speed. As he looked at the piece of news in the token, Jian Wushuang sighed lightly. What should come has finally come. Chapter 1852. Visit the Master of Star Palace had just passed away and it was a fact. The fact would be found out eventually. Jian Wushuang and the others were mentally prepared. There was someone who had made a speculation that the Master of Star Palace had died based on the inability to get in contact with the Master of Star Palace and the abnormal behavior of Lineage of Star. Although it was beyond Jian Wushuang's expectations, there was no choice, they had to act like that. After all, Ancient Mystery Land only opened once every 5 million years and it only opens for 10,000 years each time. The moment the limit of 10,000 years was reached, the Master of Star Palace wouldn't exit Ancient Mystery Land. It meant that he had definitely passed away. By then it had been 8,000 years. It was merely 1,000 years earlier than expected. However, they seized the chance to kill a large number of solo experts who harbored grudges against Lineage of Star. Hall Master Yuan, how did the recruitment of experts using Chaos Divine Treasure and other resources go? Jian Wushuang asked. It is going well. Until now, Lineage of Star has got in contact with over 30 solo experts. Among the over 30 solo experts, more than 1/3 of them are quite convinced by the condition we offered. Among the solo experts, there were 2 Emperor gods. But according to Palace Master's instruction, I have yet to let them give me their answers, Hall Master Yuan reported. It's right to not them answer yet. The news about the Master of Star Palace's death has spread, but it is mere speculation after all. No one is definite that the Master of Star Palace is dead. Before they confirm that, there shouldn't be anyone who has the guts to take action against Lineage of Star. Even if they do come, Lineage of Star shall deal with them. During this time, let the people consider clearly if they want to join Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang said. Then, Jian Wushuang tapped on the armrest and replied after he thought for a while, the news has spread and the forces in Sanctuary Alliance are definitely in a hubbub. Every one of them is keeping watch of Lineage of Star. They intend to determine what's true or false through our response. The closer we approach the crucial moment, the calmer we should carry ourselves. Even when people send us messages to ask the Master of Star Palace's whereabouts, tell them that the Master of Star Palace is in a unique place in ancient Mysteryland and there is a hindrance in space-time so we couldn't contact him. If there is anyone who is trying to be funny with us, counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Regardless of the situation that we are going to face, we of Lineage of Star shall adopt the appropriate measures. Hearing Jian Wushuang's reply, Hall Master Yuan, Hall Master Jiyu Xin and Hall Master Nai Yun nodded heavily. Lineage of Star then was different from before. Even if the Master of Star Palace passed away, Lineage of Star still wouldn't be one that anyone could provoke. All right, you are dismissed. As usual, do what you usually do, Jian Wushuang. Read more chapter on free web novel. Yes, the 3 Hall Masters nodded. The entire Sanctuary Alliance and the entire Eternal Chaotic World were talking about the news where the Master of Star Palace had passed away, but Lineage of Star, who had obviously become a public enemy, wasn't shaken at all. All forces kept watch of Lineage of Star but realized that Lineage of Star wasn't any different. Those who should cultivate, continued to cultivate. Those who should wander, continued to wander. Those who should go for an adventure, continued to go for an adventure. It was as though they had never heard of the news. The equanimity made the forces and experts in Sanctuary Alliance even more confused. They didn't understand if Lineage of Star pretended to be calm or if the Master of Star Palace wasn't dead at all, so they were confident. Those people who were itching to launch an attack settled down in order to not make a rash advance. Such a situation was only maintained for a month's time. 1 month later, outside Universe Galaxy where Lineage of Star was, a shabbily dressed elderly with messy, fiery red hair and a dirty body, like a beggar's, appeared. The slovenly elderly looked at the resplendent galaxy in front of him and there was a flash of strange light in his eyes. He then said, "Zhu Long, you specially came here to visit everyone in Lineage of Star." His bright and loud voice spread across Universe Galaxy, also traveled into Lineage of Star's lair. The experts in Lineage of Star and the disciples heard the voice, but they weren't surprised. As one of the top forces in Eternal Chaotic World, Lineage of Star, who had befriended some experts, would have some visitors in Lineage of Star occasionally. It was very normal. However, the few higher-ups in Lineage of Star heard the voice and their faces changed. Zhu Long? It must be Emperor God Zhu Long. Hall Master Yuan's gaze grew solemn. Emperor God Zhu Long has nothing to do with Lineage of Star and he isn't a friend of ours either. We go our own way without interfering with each other. He isn't among the experts that I tried to get in contact all these years either. What did he come here personally for? Who knows? Hall Master Nai Yun asked coldly. Swoosh! There was an illusionary figure and Jian Wushuang appeared next to Hall Master Yuan. Palace Master. Hall Master Yuan immediately looked at Jian Wushuang. Emperor God Zhu Long, although he isn't a peak Emperor God, he isn't too low-ranked on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list either. He visits personally and we of Lineage of Star can't leave him outside. How about this, Hall Master Yuan, you and Hall Master Jiyu Xin welcome him in. I will watch in silence. With me here, he shouldn't be able to stir up any trouble, Jian Wushuang said. All right, Hall Master Yuan nodded. Then, Hall Master Yuan and Hall Master Jiyu Xin immediately greeted him personally. At the border of Universe Galaxy. Ha ha, Emperor God Zhu Long came personally. We of Lineage of Star are greatly honored to have you as our guest. Hall Master Yuan had just got there and his laughter spread. The slovenly elderly, Emperor God Zhu Long, looked at the two of them. You must be Hall Master Yuan and Hall Master Jiyu Xin from Lineage of Star. Emperor God Zhu Long looked calm and composed. However, he thought to himself, I, an Emperor God, came to visit personally, but Lineage of Star only sent 2 Sir Gods to welcome me. Jian Wushuang didn't even come out? He thinks so highly of himself. Of course, he didn't display any displeasure on the surface. Emperor God Zhu Long, welcome. Hall Master Yuan and Hall Master Jiyu Xin brought Emperor God Zhu Long into Milky Way. Very soon, they arrived in Lineage of Star's lair. On a star where they received visitors, the 3 Hall Masters of Lineage of Star were there. Emperor God Long Zhu sat in front of a long, narrow table and there were maidservants serving him. As for Jian Wushuang, he never revealed himself. Emperor God Zhu Long, I wonder what's the purpose of your visit in Lineage of Star? Hall Master sat on the highest throne as he asked. Hall Master Jiyu Xin and Hall Master Nai Yun looked at Emperor God Zhu Long. Chapter 1853. Testing out. After hearing Hall Master Yuan's question, Emperor God Zhu Long became stunned and he laughed. To tell you the truth, I have come this time around to look for the Star Palace Master. Look for the Star Palace Master? The hearts of the 3 Hall Masters moved. Since Emperor God Zhu Long had come at such a time to pay a visit to them, it would definitely be not without any reason. Looking at it then, Emperor God Zhu Long had come just to test out the situation. He had wanted to get a feel of the situation in the Lineage of Star and also to find out if the Star Palace Master had really died. Although they were certain about this in their hearts, Hall Master Yuan was expressionless on the surface and he said, Emperor God Zhu Long, you should know that the ancient mystery land opened not long ago. As such, our Palace Master has been staying there over the past few years and to date, he has still not returned yet. It's all right that he has not returned yet. It will be fine as long as he fulfills the matter that he promised me back then, Emperor God Zhu Long said. The matter that he promised you? When and what did our Palace Master promise you? Hall Master Yuan was still indifferent. Not long ago, before he entered the ancient mystery land, he had once asked some experts and I to help him deploy a formation. As a condition, he promised to let us into the scripture depository of the Lineage of Star to cultivate the secret skill of Star Palace. Do you know of this matter? Emperor God Zhu Long asked with a stern expression. What? Hall Master Yuan's expression changed. At the same time, he knew immediately that Emperor God Zhu Long was definitely lying. To the Star Palace Master, the secret skill of Star Palace was extremely important and he would absolutely not promise Emperor God Zhu Long that he could cultivate it. The reason why Emperor God Zhu Long dared to say this then was because it was nothing but a form of test. Since no one was able to contact the Star Palace Master then, no matter what he said, it could not be confirmed. Emperor God Zhu Long, I am unable to contact our Palace Master now. Hence, I do not know if there is really such a matter. Hence, are you able to wait for another period of time for our Palace Master to come out from the ancient mystery land? By then, it will still not be too late for you to come again, Hall Master Yuan laughed. Wait for another period of time? I do not have the time and energy to continue waiting. Emperor God Zhu Long's expression turned grave. The Star Palace Master promised me that a long time ago. No matter what, I want to cultivate that secret skill of Star Palace today. I'm sorry, before the Palace Master returns, it is impossible for me to let you go to the scripture depository, Hall Master Yuan said right away. HMH, this is the way your Lineage of Star treats a guest? Emperor God Zhu Long gave a cold snort, slammed the table and jumped up in anger. His voice was filled with fury and the most important thing was that with his divine power, his voice spread across the whole Lineage of Star and a large number of expert disciples in the Lineage of Star heard the cold snort. In no time, the Lineage of Star burst into an uproar. What's going on? This voice is the same as the expert called Zhu Long from before and it should be from the expert who came to pay a visit to the Lineage of Star. However, looking at it, his discussion with the Hall Masters is not going well. Quite a number of deacon elders and disciples headed toward the constellation. Such a scene had caused the expressions of Hall Master Yuan, Hall Master Jiyu Xin and Hall Master Shi Yun to turn ugly. Just then, Emperor God Zhu Long, right? You really have a short temper. All of a sudden, An ice-cold voice could be heard, and it reverberated across the universe. After that, a young man who carried a sword on his back walked over slowly. It's Hall Master Wushuang. Hall Master Wushuang has come. When the deacon elders and the disciples of the lineage of Star saw Jian Wushuang, they revealed scorching hot expressions in succession. Those deacon elders and disciples still did not know of the news that the Star Palace Master had died. As such, they naturally did not know that Jian Wushuang had already become the new Palace Master. Thus, they still addressed Jian Wushuang as Hall Master Wushuang. Upon seeing the person who had come, all the anger that Emperor God Zhu Long possessed originally dissipated at once. Sword Emperor, Emperor God Zhu Long wore a smile. After all, Hall Master Yuan and the other two Hall Masters were Sir Gods, and he did not need to care about them. However, Jian Wushuang was ranked 30th in the Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. Hence, he did not dare to be furious in front of Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang shot a glance toward Emperor God Zhu Long. After that, his body turned vague and he appeared at the highest point of the hall. His ice-cold eyes then looked at Emperor God Zhu Long. No matter what our Palace Master promised you before, you will still need to wait for our Palace Master to return to the lineage of Star first. Moreover, after it has been confirmed, you will be able to get your reward. Before that, you had better wait quietly. I was too impatient. Emperor God Zhu Long laughed with embarrassment. However, after another hundreds of years, I will need to make a trip to the second lair, which is quite dangerous. Before that, I hope to obtain the secret skill of Star Palace to help myself stay alive. If I were to wait for the Star Palace Master to come back from the ancient Mystery Land, it would obviously be too late. Hence, how about this, Sword Emperor? Is it possible for you to tell me the current location of the Star Palace Master? I will go to the ancient Mystery Land personally to look for him and then get him to send a message back. Is that all right? Upon hearing that, Jian Wushuang laughed with ridicule. What a joke. Our Palace Master has just obtained a great opportunity and he is at the most critical stage. At this point of time, why would I tell you his current location? Emperor God Zhu Long, you really know how to imagine the wildest things. Even if he is in a critical stage, transmitting a message is as easy as blinking an eye and it will absolutely not affect him. Sword Emperor, since you are unwilling to tell me his current location, could it be that the Vientiane Tower's guess is right and that the Star Palace Master has already died? Emperor God Zhu Long's eyes had a strange expression and he was staring at Jian Wushuang. Similarly, his words were spread intentionally using his divine power and they reverberated across the whole lineage of Star. In particular, the last few words resounded repeatedly and they did not dissipate even after a long time. When the deacon elders and the large number of disciples in the lineage of Star heard that, all of them were stunned. Palace Master has died? Is this real or fake? Many deacon elders and disciples became dumbfounded as for Jian Wushuang. His expression turned cold abruptly and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. You're courting death. With a cry, 3 brilliant rays of golden light appeared at the same time. Swish! 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 The moment the 3 rays of golden light appeared, they changed into a golden rainbow, pierced the void and appeared in front of Emperor God Zhu Long. Not good. Emperor God Zhu Long's expression changed greatly. His motive this time around for coming was to get a feel of the situation in the lineage of Star. He had never thought of fighting head-on with Jian Wushuang, who had a mighty name. Moreover, he recognized the 3 rays of golden light. They were the 3 Hongjun golden swords, the treasures that the Sword Emperor was famous for. Rumble powerful divine power burst forth. In a dangerous situation, Emperor God Zhu Long unleashed his full power. His big hands were covered with a great amount of flames and he unleashed 3 palm attacks in succession instantly. Bam! 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 3 booming sounds could be heard in succession and every booming sound was accompanied by the appearance with a giant black hole. After the booming sound, puff! Emperor God Zhu Long spit out a mouthful of blood wildly. Chapter 1854. Jian Wushuang's strength. Then, Emperor God Zhu Long could only feel his internal organs burning and his aura instantly grew dispirited. At the same time, his heart was shivering with fright. He's too strong, just as stated on the information. Jian Wushuang's 3 Hongjun golden swords are as powerful as a hit of a peak Emperor God each. The combination of the 3 could simply suppress an ordinary peak Emperor God. Vroom, vroom, vroom. The 3 golden lights floated in the void and floated in front of Emperor God Zhulong. With Jian Wushuang's willpower, the 3 Hongjun golden swords would attack again and kill Emperor God Zhulong. Sword Emperor, spare my life. Emperor God Zhulong quickly begged for mercy. I do not have bad intentions. I do not harbor malice. You do not harbor malice? Right, you do not. However, the purpose of your visit and what you are thinking in your head, you and I know clearly. There's no need for bullshit. Listen up, go back and tell the people behind you that they'd better send some powerful experts if they intend to probe lineage of Star and find out if our palace master passed away. If they have the power to force lineage of Star into a desperate situation, into a corner, then they will find out. What's the purpose of sending rubbish like you? Jian Wushuang sneered. Emperor God Zhulong heard and felt angry. One should know that he was an emperor god and his ranking on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list wasn't low. But in the end, Jian Wushuang had referred to him as rubbish? Emperor God Zhulong, I will give you 2 options now. Either you stay here, or you, FCK off. Jian Wushuang said coldly. Emperor God Zhulong looked furious but he couldn't let loose. He could only hold back his anger and turn to leave. Watching Emperor God Zhulong leave, the surrounding hall masters let out breaths of relief. Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold. He looked at the deacon elders and disciples that had gathered around him. The elders and disciples looked on in distress. They were obviously affected by what Emperor God Zhulong said. What you all of you doing standing here? Go ahead and do what you must, Jian Wushuang bellowed. The elders and disciples look at Jian Wushuang in reverence and then turn to leave. Although they left, their emotions would be hard to calm down. Jian Wushuang could do nothing about it. I never thought that Emperor God Zhulong would make that move. Jian Wushuang's voice was low. Emperor God Zhulong tried to probe verbally and Jian Wushuang was mentally prepared. Even when he intentionally became angry, it was within Jian Wushuang's expectations as well. However, Jian Wushuang had never expected that Emperor God Zhulong would intentionally spread the news about the Master of Star Palace's death within Lineage of Star so that the elders and disciples would hear of it. One should know that the founder of Lineage of Star, the Master of Star Palace, was truly the mainstay. As long as he was alive, Lineage of Star would be in safe hands. However, even though the news about the Master of Star Palace's death had yet to be verified, the elders and disciples in Lineage of Star would inevitably be suspicious. Especially when the news spread to the other elders and disciples, everyone would panic and Lineage of Star would lose its order. At such a crucial moment, unless the Master of Star Palace revealed himself again, the situation would be hard to deal with. I really want to kill Emperor God Zhulong earlier, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Emperor God Zhulong came to visit after all and he never provoked Lineage of Star in public. If we were to kill him in Lineage of Star, it would be unreasonable, Hall Master Yuan said. I know, that's why I held back, Jian Wushuang said. However, they didn't give ourselves away when Emperor God Zhulong probed. The forces and experts in Sanctuary Alliance still couldn't be sure if the Master of Star Palace passed away. It's all right, but we have to comfort our elders and disciples. Hall Master Yuan, please take care of this. No problem. I know what to do, Hall Master Yuan replied. Jian Wushuang nodded and then returned to Sword Star to begin cultivation. He had to grasp every minute and second to increase his power. On the other hand, not long after Emperor God Zhulong had left Lineage of Star, he appeared in a unique void. There were 4 thrones floating in the void and there were 4 figures seated on the throne. Of course, the 4 figures were merely consciousness incarnation. They represented the 4 major forces in eternal chaotic world. For instance, Emperor God Xianxia from Soaring Heaven King Palace, his consciousness embodiment was among the 4. Emperor God Longzhu, how did it go? Emperor God Xianxia looked at him. Needless to say, judging by his look, he definitely got rejected, an evil-looking elderly teased. Emperor God Zhulong humphed coldly, then he took out a token. This is the mirror image after I entered Lineage of Star. I recorded it with the token. I have probed whatever I can. As for the result, you can determine it on your own. Then, Emperor God Zhulong left. He had gone to probe Lineage of Star personally because of the benefits that the 4 major forces had offered. He had already acted according to the 4 major forces requirements. He didn't care about the final result. After Emperor God Zhulong had left, the 4 consciousness embodiment on the throne immediately watched the mirror image. The 4 of them were quiet after they saw the scene within Lineage of Star. Did you notice anything? Emperor God Xianxia looked at the other 3 figures. No, the evil-looking elderly shook his head. From the beginning until the end, the experts from Lineage of Star were calm and composed. As for Sword Emperor, he was as overbearing as ever. Besides, the elders and disciples in Lineage of Star looked like they didn't know the news about the Master of Star Palace's death. Calmness can be forged. As for the elders and disciples, it's normal that they wouldn't know about the death of the Master of Star Palace. It is such a major news. The moment it spread, the entire Lineage of Star would be in chaos. If I were to be Sword Emperor, I definitely wouldn't announce it either. The one that I truly care is Sword Emperor. His strength is shocking, a brawny, middle-aged man said. Before the news about the Master of Star Palace's death spread, it was normal that he is so overbearing. But now, one should know that Emperor God Zhulong is an Emperor God and there is a strong force backing him up. However, Sword Emperor got furious because of his one line and Sword Emperor injured him directly. If they weren't in Lineage of Star's lair, I reckon he might have killed Emperor God Zhulong directly. Chapter 1855. The first to do it. After pausing for some time, the stalwart, middle-aged man continued speaking. This Sword Emperor is so aggressive and he is not impudent at all. This is not something that he can pretend to be so easily, and he must definitely be extremely confident to do it. Moreover, where exactly did his confidence come from? The 3 people by the side looked at each other. Jian Wushuang's confidence? Subconsciously, they thought about the Star Palace Master. Could it be that the Vientiane Tower's prediction is really wrong and that the Star Palace Master is not dead at all? Instead, he has only entered a special place and he is unable to contact the outside world? The evil old man said. It is hard to say. However, we are unable to come to a conclusion with just Emperor God Zhulong alone, Emperor God Xianxia said. They did not know that Jian Wushuang's confidence did not come from the Star Palace Master. Instead, it was from the power that he possessed, as well as the large number of trump cards that the Lineage of Star had. With Jian Wushuang bringing many Dao soldiers back to the Lineage of Star and an expert from the ancient past overseeing things, as well as his own abilities, Jian Wushuang and the Lineage of Star were still extremely confident even though they had lost the Star Palace Master. Especially Jian Wushuang. From the start of his training to date, he had come across all kinds of dangers and he had been used to it since a long time ago. Moreover, he had already thought of a way out. If a great battle were to really break out and the Lineage of Star were unable to compete against its opponents even after using all its trump cards and powers, he would at least bring some core experts of the Lineage of Star and escape to the Green Fire world. Over there, not only was it hidden and no one knew about it, there was a great formation that his master, Xianxia, had deployed. As such, no one could do anything to them. The most important thing was that the training environment in the Green Fire world was a lot better than that of the 10 sanctuaries. As such, he could absolutely stay at the Green Fire world and hide there for a period of time to allow his sword servant, Xianxia, to completely recover his abilities. Then, with the fighting capabilities of a great emperor, even if the Green Fire world were to appear again, who would dare to act recklessly? Of course, Jian Wushuang would only do this at the final stage when there was no other choice. Furthermore, due to the presence of this route of retreat, Jian Wushuang was not afraid in the slightest bit. If we really want to know if the Star Palace Master has died, there are only 2 ways to do it, the stalwart middle-aged man said with a heavy voice. Firstly, we will wait for the ancient mystery land to close. Then, we will see if the Star Palace Master comes out from the ancient mystery land. However, there is still more than 1,000 years' time before the ancient mystery land closes. More than 1,000 years' time was considered nothing to these old bastards who stood at the highest point of the eternal chaotic world and had lived for an unknown number of years. To them, it was just the instant of flicking a finger. However, if they had to wait for another 1,000 over years then, they would feel uneasy. After all, Jian Wushuang's speed of growth was too fast. His speed of growth was really incredible. In more than 1,000 years' time, there was a high possibility that his abilities would rise again. Moreover, the most important thing was that during the 1,000 years, the lineage of Star could make ample preparations to deal with the upcoming danger. Moreover, they could move the core experts of the lineage of Star, as well as the method of inheritance of the secret skill of Star Palace, to another location secretly. Then, even if they were to fight their way in, what they would destroy would simply be an empty shell. In more than 1,000 years' time, there would be many changes, the evil old man said. If we do not wish to wait for more than 1,000 years, we can only use the second way, as Jian Wushuang said. We have to force the lineage of Star into a hopeless situation. In order to do this, we need someone to lead a big group of experts and fight their way into the lineage of Star. The stalwart middle-aged man's voice was cold. The three people by the side nodded their heads in succession. If the lineage of Star were already in a hopeless situation and the Star Palace Master did not show himself or there was no news about him at all, then it meant that he had died. However, the key question was, who would they get to do that? Xianxia, during this period of time, your soaring Heaven King Palace has had the fiercest fight against Jian Wushuang. Hence, it would be extremely logical for your soaring Heaven King Palace to fight your way to their doorstep now. The stalwart middle-aged man looked in the direction of Emperor God Xianxia. Forget about my soaring Heaven King Palace. During the intense battle with Jian Wushuang previously, we lost quite a number of almighties. If we were to have a life-and-death kind of great battle with the lineage of Star again, even if we were to win, my soaring Heaven King Palace would be close to destruction. Emperor God Xianxia laughed apathetically. How about the three of you? For the past few years, your powerhouses have already recovered to your peaks. Why not make a trip to the lineage of Star? You should know that if you are the first one to fight your way into the lineage of Star, the method of inheritance of the secret skill of Star Palace will belong to you. My Divine King Island is not so established, unlike the powerhouses of the three of you. Hence, we do not have the means to go against the lineage of Star. The stalwart middle-aged man shook his head repeatedly. With the appearance of the ancient mystery land, more than 70% of the almighties of my real martial arts divine church have gone there to travel. For a short amount of time, we are unable to organize a team of experts to fight their way into the lineage of Star. The evil old man laughed. As for the last person, he said right away, my highest heaven emperor mansion will not do it. Upon seeing such a scene, Emperor God Xianxiao's eyes squinted and he laughed coldly within his heart. Although the four powerhouses had gathered together then, they had not been united since the start and all of them had their own selfish motives. They were still not sure about the lineage of Star's situation and the Star Palace Master's death was not confirmed yet. In addition, they knew that they might obtain the method of inheritance of the secret skill of Star Palace if they were to be the first one to fight their way into the lineage of Star. However, no one dared to do it. Since no one is willing to take action, let's disperse. Emperor God Xianxia waved his hands and his figure was the first one to dissipate. The remaining three people laughed nonchalantly. After that, they disappeared from the void. In no time, the news that Emperor God Zhulong had paid a visit to the lineage of Star and was seriously injured by Jian Wushuang due to him talking recklessly spread within the Sanctuary Alliance. Jian Wushuang's aggressiveness had caused quite a number of people to be extremely surprised. Such aggressiveness. This Sword Emperor is probably very confident. Could it be that the Star Palace Master is not dead? Who knows? However, now, if we want to find out whether the Star Palace Master has really died, it will be totally useless to rely on a simple test. Someone has to take action and fight a great battle with the lineage of Star. Moreover, he must force the lineage of Star into a hopeless situation. However, the key thing is, who will be willing to be the first one to do it? The first one to do it. These words were indeed used appropriately. Although the first person to do it would take the greatest benefit, he would need to face the greatest amount of risk. Sticking one's neck out, everyone knew this saying. If the Star Palace Master were not dead, this first person who did it would face the merciless massacre of the Star Palace Master. Although a great number of powerhouses in the Sanctuary Alliance were ready to start something, none of them was willing to be the first one to do it. For the next 10 years' time, even though the Sanctuary Alliance and the whole eternal chaotic world was seething with excitement, no one dared to take action against the lineage of Star. Until one day. Chapter 1856. Abysmal Palace. In the lofty palace, there was a total of over a dozen figures that stood there waiting. Among the dozens of people, the one leading was a middle-aged man in a baggy green robe. The middle-aged man was tall and well-built, and his aura was enough to shock an ordinary emperor god. His name was Wu Luo. Palace Master Wu Luo, a peak emperor god in the 25th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. One should know that Emperor God Liu Guang, who Jian Wushuang had invited to destroy Deluge Fortress regardless of the price he paid, was only in the 27th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. Palace Master Wu Luo was slightly stronger than Emperor God Liu Guang. However, a strong existence like him was standing in reverence before a dark blurry figure floating in front of him. The dark figure was very dark. When he was there, it was as though there wasn't any light in the universe. Go ahead. Go and kill Jian Wushuang. There's no reason for Lineage of Star to continue to exist. The dark figure said, and his figure slowly dispersed. Palace Master Wu Luo watched the blurry figure disperse in reverence. Then, he stood in front of the experts and waved, "Let's go, to Starland." Very soon, the news spread like wildfire in Sanctuary Alliance. Abysmal Palace was going to attack Lineage of Star. Ever since the news of the Master of Star Palace's death had spread, they had been standing at the heart of the struggle. However, as the news had yet to prove its veracity, it was still at peace. However, all forces and sects were eyeing Lineage of Star with hostility. They were all waiting to see who was the one who loses patience first. Who would be the bird at the head of the pack? Then, Abysmal Palace obviously could hold back no more. Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang, Hall Master Yuan, Hall Master Jiu Xin and Hall Master Niu Yun gathered at the hall. Abysmal Palace. Who would have guessed it would be Abysmal Palace? Hall Master Yuan's face grew grave. One should know that although Lineage of Star had offended many forces and experts, Abysmal Palace wasn't one of them. Then, the forces and experts who harbored great resentment against Lineage of Star didn't take action, but Abysmal Palace was the first. Abysmal Palace, Abysmal Saint Master, I will remember this. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands as his eyes gave out a chilly gleam. Abysmal Palace was one of the major forces in Sanctuary Alliance. They were also the top 3 superb forces in terms of foundation and power among the forces in Sanctuary Alliance. In terms of foundation, power, and fame, Abysmal Palace was much scarier than Soaring Heaven King Palace. In Abysmal Palace, the number of Almighties alone was more than 20 and there were 4 Emperor Gods. As for Palace Master Wu Luo, he was in the 25th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. He wasn't the scariest. The scariest was the founder of Abysmal Palace, Abysmal Saint Master, who was in 3rd place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, who was on par with Red Dragon King, second to Emperor Bai. They were already so powerful themselves. In addition, they had a great emperor who was in 3rd place, Abysmal Saint Master, who backed them. Just how scary Abysmal Palace would be. Under normal circumstances, even Soaring Heaven King Palace, which was barbaric, would exercise self-control when dealing with Abysmal Palace. Abysmal Palace and Lineage of Star shared no resentment. During the Master of Star Palace's massacre back then, Abysmal Palace hadn't partaken in the war, nor had the Master of Star Palace killed any of their men. However, they were the first who took action against Lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang immediately realized that Abysmal Palace wasn't aiming for Lineage of Star, but their main target was actually him. Abysmal Saint Master wanted to kill him. As for the reason behind it, Jian Wushuang was sure. Back when he had met Abysmal Saint Master in Deluge Fortress, he could tell that Abysmal Saint Master hadn't liked him and held a faint murderous intention. However, the people in Sanctuary Alliance knew. Hall Master Yuan, only Abysmal Palace is coming after Lineage of Star alone? Jian Wushuang asked. It seems to be so on the surface, Hall Master Yuan answered. On the surface? How about at the back? Jian Wushuang asked closely. I have no exact answer. However, there must be many forces and experts that follow Abysmal Palace. However, before Abysmal Palace forces Lineage of Star to play our strongest trump cards, they won't have the guts to take action, Hall Master Yuan said. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded and there was billowing murderous intention in his eyes. He looked at the 3 Hall Masters in front of him and he spoke with a cold voice. As Abysmal Palace is taking action, it was definitely Abysmal Saint Master who told them to. However, Abysmal Saint Master is a great emperor and he is restrained by Sanctuary Alliance. The fight between Lineage of Star and Abysmal Palace, no matter how ferocious the fight becomes, as long as we do not step foot in the lair of Abysmal Palace, he won't get involved. Plus, it was the master of Abysmal Palace who took the initiative to attack Lineage of Star, so we won't have to worry. As Abysmal Palace wants to be the bird at the head of the pack, Lineage of Star can only go all out and knock it down. Hearing what Jian Wushuang had said, the three hall masters clenched their hands and let out a chilliness. Lineage of Star was different from before. Even without the master of Star Palace in the commanding position, they wouldn't be bullied as one wished. As Abysmal Palace wanted to come, they naturally would counterattack with full force. Hall Master Yuan, send a command down. Tell the experts and disciples of Lineage of Star who are on Starland to immediately return to Universe Galaxy at their fastest speed. As for experts in other sanctuaries and wandering elsewhere, you don't need to chase them back. Also, from now on, keep watch of Abysmal Palace. I want to know their every move, Jian Wushuang said in a low voice. Yes, Hall Master Yuan immediately sent down the command. After receiving the command, the experts and disciples of Lineage of Star immediately returned to Universe Galaxy at their fastest speed. 10 days later, a huge warship appeared on Starland. The warship didn't conceal itself but plunged towards Lineage of Star's lair at its top speed after it descended. They charged forward very quickly and weren't hindered at all. Lineage of Star received the news the very moment they descended as well. Palace Master, Abysmal Palace is already in Starland. They rushed over in a spaceship, and according to the information that our spy got, there is a total of 18 people in the spaceship. They are all Almighties. Among, there are 3 Emperor Gods and 15 Sir Gods. They are led by Palace Master Wu Luo himself, Hall Master Yuan reported solemnly. They arrived very quickly and there are so many experts. 3 Emperor Gods, 15 Sir Gods, this team formation. Jian Wushuang's face was cold. Chapter 1857, Meeting Enemies Head-on. Back then, with Fortress Master Hong Qian as the leader, Deluge Fortress gathered a total of 13 Almighties, and this power was already extremely shocking. It was only because of the fact that Jian Wushuang had invited Emperor God Liu Guang and Emperor God Zhu Yin along that he had managed to destroy the Deluge Fortress. However, the Abysmal Palace's lineup then was a lot more powerful than the Deluge Fortress. In particular, they had Palace Master Wu Luo, who possessed an impressive amount of fighting capabilities. Palace Master Wu Luo was ranked 25 on the Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, and he was slightly more powerful than Emperor God Liu Guang. Moreover, even Jian Wushuang had to admit that this lineup was extremely powerful. The stronger the lineup, the better it will be. Jian Wushuang's voice was ice cold. Now, most of those experts that my Lineage of Star are trying to recruit are still looking on from the sidelines, and they are unable to make a decision. That is because, to date, they are still unable to see whether the Lineage of Star will survive, and they feel that it is no different from digging their own graves if they were to join the Lineage of Star now. However, if my Lineage of Star were able to reveal powerful fighting capabilities and show that we are extremely frightening, those experts will then be able to have hope and be willing to join my Lineage of Star at this stage. For them to become top experts, all of them had to be intelligent and crafty. For a powerhouse that was about to be destroyed, even if it were to offer good rewards or conditions that could attract them, they would definitely not agree to it. However, if they were to think that the powerhouse might not be destroyed and that it had great potential, that would be completely different. Moreover, they might even join of their own accord. The Abysmal Palace's appearance has given the Lineage of Star a chance instead. A chance to reveal to everyone our absolute abilities. Our Lineage of Star must definitely win this battle. Moreover, we must have a great victory, and we must use this great victory to frighten everyone. Jian Wushuang's chilly voice reverberated across the area. The 3 hall masters below were filled with excitement as well. So what if it were the Abysmal Palace? As long as the Abysmal Saint Master was unable to show himself, the Lineage of Star had nothing to fear. Palace Master, we have gotten news that the spaceship that the Abysmal Palace is riding on has already appeared near the Cloud Island. I reckon that in half a day's time, they should be able to fight their way to outside the Universe Galaxy, Hall Master Yuan said. There's no need for us to wait for another half a day. We shall head out right away and meet them head-on, Jian Wushuang said at once. Meet them head-on? Hall Master Yuan, Hall Master Jiu Xin and Hall Master Shiyun looked in the direction of Jian Wushuang. They had originally thought that Jian Wushuang had wanted to use the geographical features of the Universe Galaxy, a trump card, to his advantage and then fight with the Abysmal Palace head-on. However, Jian Wushuang wanted to take the initiative to fight his way to them. It's just an Abysmal Palace, and there is no need for the lineage of Star to expose a trump card like the Universe Galaxy. Even if we were to meet them head-on, the lineage of Star would still be able to have a great victory. Jian Wushuang said right away. Meet them. Meet them head-on. The three Hall Masters nodded their heads earnestly. At once, Jian Wushuang led the two Sir Gods, Hall Master Ji Yuxin and Hall Master Shiyun personally along with Jian Yi. As for Hall Master Yuan, he was a weapons spirit and he was unable to go out to meet the enemies. Moreover, he had to stay to take charge of the Universe Galaxy. In a vast void in the Starland, a giant spaceship was traveling forward with shocking speed. In the spaceship, the 18 Almighties of the Abysmal Palace were all gathered inside. There are quite a number of people following behind me. There are even a few Almighties as well. A silvery white-armored, arrogant youth, who wore an alluring smile, was chatting. Those people are all scouts from all the powerhouses. Previously, all of them were worried as to whether the Star Palace Master was really dead. Hence, all of them were extremely fearful and they did not dare to act recklessly. And now, my Abysmal Palace has become the first to take action for them, a green-clothed young lady said. The first to take action? Ha ha, my Abysmal Palace does not care at all. After all, in front of absolute abilities, everything else is non-existent. The arrogant youth was filled with disdain. All the powerhouses of the Sanctuary Alliance were worried about the Star Palace Master. However, the Abysmal Palace did not care at all as they had the Abysmal Saint Master backing them. Even if the Star Palace Master were still alive, they would dare to fight their way in right away. Among those scouts, there should be someone from the lineage of Star, right? My Abysmal Palace has done things this time around in a way that attracts a lot of attention. Hence, the lineage of Star has definitely gotten the news a long time ago. After knowing that my Abysmal Palace is coming, the people in the lineage of Star are probably so shocked that they are trembling in fear, the arrogant youth sneered. Don't underestimate the lineage of Star, especially that Sword Emperor. After all, back then, he killed the 13 Almighties including the Fortress Master Hong Qian in the Deluge Fortress with violent techniques, the green-clothed young lady said. HMPH. He only managed to destroy the Deluge Fortress due to the presence of Emperor God Liu Guang. As for Sword Emperor's own abilities, he is merely a peak Emperor God. This time around, when my Abysmal Palace has come personally, who would dare to help him to go against my Abysmal Palace? Moreover, even if he were to invite Emperor God Liu Guang over again, it would be fine. With Palace Master here, what is a mere Emperor God Liu Guang considered to him? The arrogant youth snorted coldly. You're right, the green-clothed young lady nodded her head as well. Their eyes then happened to look in the direction of Palace Master Wu Luo at the same time and their eyes were filled with respect. Just then, an ancient silver spaceship came from the void in front and the large number of Almighties in the Abysmal Palace realized it at once. This is Sword Emperor's spaceship? The Almighties in the Abysmal Palace were stunned. They had planned to fight their way into the base of the lineage of Star. However, who could have expected that before they could reach the base of the lineage of Star, the lineage of Star would actually take the initiative to come out? Ha ha, the lineage of Star's people are really extremely stupid. Even though they knew that we were coming, they did not stay in their base obediently and stop us with all their might with the aid of the Great Formation. Instead, they took the initiative to come out? Are they sending themselves to death? The arrogant youth was the first person to laugh loudly. The lineage of Star is not this stupid, right? Could it be that they wish to negotiate or lower their heads to the Abysmal Palace? Negotiate? Lower their heads? That is highly possible. Let's go and take a look. Many experts of the Abysmal Palace wore a smile and walked out of the cabin. In the vast void, the two spaceships had stopped moving and they confronted each other with a huge distance in between them. The large number of experts of the Abysmal Palace had already come out from the spaceship and appeared at the void. As for the lineage of Star, only Hall Master Ji Yuxin showed herself. I am Ji Yuxin from the lineage of Star. Greetings to Palace Master Wu Luo, as well as everyone else from the Abysmal Palace. Hall Master Ji Yuxin had a modest expression. However, her words and behavior did not contain any form of fear. May I know why all of you have come on my lineage of Star so abruptly? Why have we come? The large number of experts from the Abysmal Palace laughed secretly. It was obvious that Hall Master Ji Yuxin asked the question even though she already knew the answer. Chapter 1858. Funny excuse, Sir God Ji Yuxin. There was a cold voice. Among the experts of Abysmal Palace, Palace Master Wu Luo in green robe took a stride forward and his sharp gaze with boundless dignity fixed upon Hall Master Ji Yuxin. I came here today for one person only, and he is Jian Wushuang. The feud between him and Abysmal Palace is deep-seated. Abysmal Palace has to kill him. As long as Lineage of Star hands him over, I will immediately leave. Hall Master Ji Yuxin's face changed when he heard that. He replied, I wonder when did Hall Master Wushuang offend Abysmal Palace? When? Not too long ago. He killed Emperor God Fan Yuan, and Emperor God Fan Yuan is a man under Abysmal Palace. Palace Master Wu Luo replied coldly. What? Hall Master Ji Yuxin stunned. Jian Wushuang, who was in the silver spaceship, heard, and he couldn't help but laugh. Palace Master Wu Luo is so shameless. He uses such a funny excuse. Excuse? It was no doubt an excuse. Emperor God Fan Yuan had been killed when Jian Wushuang had killed Emperor God Jin Ming, who shared great resentment with Lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang was sure that Emperor God Fan Yuan was a solo expert and he wasn't related to Abysmal Palace at all. It was impossible that he was Abysmal Palace's man. After all, if Emperor God Fan Yuan was Abysmal Palace's man, he definitely would have brought up Abysmal Palace when his life was threatened. But he didn't. It was obvious that Emperor God Fan Yuan was merely an excuse that Abysmal Palace had found. Emperor God Fan Yuan had already died anyway, and the dead couldn't bear witness. Abysmal Palace could say whatever they want. Palace Master Wu Luo, Emperor God Fan Yuan was really killed by Hall Master Wushuang. However, how could Emperor God Fan Yuan be Abysmal Palace's man? Hall Master Ji Yuxin questioned instantly. Humph, he is if I say he is. Stop this nonsense. Either Lineage of Star hands over Jian Wushuang or Abysmal Palace will barge in to destroy Lineage of Star. It's your choice. Palace Master Wu Luo's cold voice reverberated in the sky. However, just as he spoke. I originally thought Soaring Heaven King Palace was barbaric enough. But it seems now that Abysmal Palace is even better at it compared to Soaring Heaven King Palace. His laughter shook the sky and rang across the universe. As the laughter rang across the universe, Jian Wushuang, who was on the silver spaceship, got out slowly with an icy look. The moment he appeared, his eyes shot at everyone from Abysmal Palace like lightning. At the same time, his voice with boundless chilliness was heard. Abysmal Palace, right? Let's just say Emperor God Fan Yuan was Abysmal Palace's man. So what? I, Jian Wushuang, already killed him. What can you do about it? As his voice reverberated, not only the people from Abysmal Palace could hear it clearly. The spies who were hidden in the dark sent by all forces, including a few almighties, could hear them clearly. In an instant, it stirred a commotion in the universe. You have guts. An idiot that doesn't know the immensity of the universe. No wonder so many people want to kill him. The experts from Abysmal Palace were furious. Palace Master Wu Luo stiffened and he stared at Jian Wushuang when he roared, as you're courting death, I will fulfill your wish. They didn't bullshit anymore. The moment Palace Wu Luo's voice stopped, the 18 almighties from Abysmal Palace instantly pounded. Hong! 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 18 fierce auras spread and pressed forward wantonly. Especially the three leading figures. The three emperor gods were soaring with killing intention. They were all aiming at Jian Wushuang in the void in front of them. Swoosh! Swoosh! The two figures appeared behind Jian Wushuang at the same time. Looking at everyone from Abysmal Palace, Hall Master Ji Yuxin and Hall Master Nai Yin looked solemn. Both of you, be careful. Jian Wushuang glanced at the two people behind him. Don't worry, we will. Hall Master Ji Yuxin nodded heavily. Jian Wushuang didn't speak anymore but waved, and there were instantly 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers that appeared in front of them. The 4 Dao soldiers looked cold and expressionless. There was a chilly gleam in Jian Wushuang's eyes. There was a low bellow and Jian Wushuang, Hall Master Ji Yuxin, Hall Master Nai Yun and the 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers charged forward. Jian Wushuang would naturally bear the brunt of the battle right at the front. The two team formations were obviously out of proportion. Suddenly, they were going to fight head-on. Dan Tu, Luo Xian, the two of you team up with me and we shall kill Jian Wushuang first. The rest of you, kill the two Sir Gods from Lineage of Star and destroy the 4 Dao soldiers. If you can't destroy the 4 Dao soldiers, just keep them stranded for the time being. When we kill Jian Wushuang and the others, we will figure out a way to take control of them. They will be extremely useful to Abysmal Palace in the future, Palace Master Wu Luo commanded. Yes, the Almighties behind him nodded simultaneously. The proud and aloof Emperor God Dan Tu and the green-robed maiden, Emperor God Luo Xian, followed behind Palace Master Wu Luo. Suddenly, both parties were fighting together. Palace Master Wu Luo's aura increased tremendously and there was a flame soaring from his body as though he was covered in a layer of flame armor. His body grew to 5 meters tall and he was holding hundreds of millions of Jin hammer with both his hands. The hammer was slammed in the direction of Jian Wushuang. Dong! The void wasn't broken but there were shapeless waves that rippled as though it had hit the surface of the water. However, the ripples contained terrifying power that could injure a Sir God badly. Then, there were more than hundreds of ripples that spread. Humph! Jian Wushuang shrumped coldly and Blood Mountain sword was drawn from its scabbard instantly. Reincarnation sword principle, the 4th move. The sword was drawn and wielded. It was completed in an instant. The stroke contained boundless reincarnation power. The reincarnation power was based on Jian Wushuang's comprehension towards reincarnation doctrine and he had already reached the peak of the 7th level in Doctrine Palace. Besides, most importantly, the stroke contained Jian Wushuang's terrifying strength. Divine power of a 3rd stage ultimate real god and bloodline power of a 7-star ancient tribe expert. The combination of two brought about the strength that was double the power of an emperor god. The terrifying stroke whistled as it slashed. Instantly, most of the ripples that spread were broken while the sword light continued to sweep out. In the end, it shattered more than 100 ripples. You're quite powerful. Palace Master Wu Luo was shocked. Then, the two ghostly figures appeared next to Jian Wushuang at the same time. Emperor God Dan Tu and Emperor God Luo Xian. The two Emperor Gods weren't weak in ranking on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. Emperor God Dan Tu was even extremely close to peak Emperor God. Then, the two Emperor Gods let their fighting power explode as they went all out. Chapter 1859. Using your blood to warn the world. Jian Wushuang, die! Emperor God Dan Tu's face was hideous and his eyes were filled with an infinite amount of murderous intent. Emperor God Dan Tu was a super genius. Be it when he was a universe god or when he was a real god, he was praised as the #1 in his realm. At that moment, he had become an almighty and entered the realm of emperor gods. However, this was not his limit. He still had great potential and he could absolutely become a peak emperor god in the future. Moreover, it was possible for him to rival or even surpass Palace Master Wu Luo. As such, this caused him to feel extremely proud. However, when he knew of Jian Wushuang's existence as well as his accomplishments, he could no longer remain calm. Jian Wushuang's brilliant accomplishments, where he possessed the fighting capabilities of a peak emperor god even though he was a real god, had caused Emperor God Dan Tu to lose his arrogance. Quite a number of people had once compared him to Jian Wushuang. However, in the end, Emperor God Dan Tu was not even considered a genius in front of Jian Wushuang. This had caused Emperor God Dan Tu to be filled with hatred since a long time ago. At that moment, since he had the opportunity to kill Jian Wushuang, he naturally went all out. Swish! A saber light headed toward Jian Wushuang's head and it was filled with a tremendous amount of hatred. On the other side, Emperor God Luo Xian went all out. Upon seeing that, Jian Wushuang laughed coldly. Boom! A frightening aura of a bloodline burst forth completely and Jian Wushuang's body expanded abruptly. It was not until he had become 100 feet tall that he stopped expanding. The skin of him then had completely changed to black jade and his body surface wore red armor. Moreover, many heads and arms appeared from his body and he had a total of 7 heads as well as 14 arms. This caused him to look unusually hideous and frightening, as if he were an unmatched demon god. For his 14 arms, each of them held a sword and at that moment, the swords were swung out fiercely. Clang! 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 Violent clashing sounds could be heard continuously, and every clash was earth-shaking. He had completely unleashed his close-quarter combat abilities and, combined with his own extremely unreasonable power and sword principles, he fought an intense battle with Dan Tu and Luo Xian, the two emperor gods, at the same time. In the end, he still had the upper hand, and the two emperor gods were suppressed to the point that they retreated again and again. Fortunately, Palace Master Wu Luo hurried over in time. Boom! A powerful blow from a hammer descended and it tore open the space, generating a great amount of pressure. This caused Jian Wushuang's expression to turn grave, and among his 14 arms, a total of 8 of them held swords to block the attack. Bang! With a loud sound, Jian Wushuang's body was sent flying toward the bottom. The killing moves of the two emperor gods, Dan Tu and Luo Xian, who were by the side, were unleashed, and Jian Wushuang swung the swords in his 6 remaining arms with his full power to block their attacks. However, the unreasonable power sent Jian Wushuang flying, just like before. Hall Master Jiyu Xin, Hall Master Shi Yun, retreat. While he was sent flying, Jian Wushuang still shouted. Hall Master Jiyu Xin and Hall Master Shi Yun had teamed up with 4 Dao soldiers to fight an intense battle with the 15 Sir gods of the Abysmal Palace head-on. As it was 6 against 15, no matter how powerful the abilities of the 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers, as well as of the 2 Hall Masters, were, they were still suppressed. However, fortunately, there were no casualties. After hearing Jian Wushuang's words, the 2 Hall Masters, as well as the 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers, retreated right away. Swoosh! 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 Although Jian Wushuang's body had already retreated from the battlefield, he did not escape. Instead, he stopped at a void that was far away. Hall Master Jiyu Xin, Hall Master Shi Yun and the 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers returned to him in no time. In front of them, the 18 experts of the Abysmal Palace gathered together again. This great battle had actually stopped temporarily. However, it had not come to an end yet. Jiyu Xin and Shi Yun, how do both of you feel? Jian Wushuang glanced at the 2 Hall Masters behind him. I am still all right. Hall Master Jiyu Xin's voice was dull. It has been a long time since I fought such an intense battle. Hall Master Shi Yun was extremely cold and stern. Upon seeing that, Jian Wushuang laughed. Our warm-up has come to an end. Next, it's time for our massacre. Massacre! The eyes of Hall Master Jiyu Xin and Hall Master Shi Yun glowed brilliantly. Kill all of them. Let them know the consequences of provoking the lineage of Star. Kill! 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 The 2 Hall Masters were filled with murderous intent. At the void in front, the 18 experts of the Abysmal Palace had already started to close in on them, and Palace Master Wu Luo shouted with an ice-cold voice, Jian Wushuang, you already have no way out. With the Abysmal Palace taking action, it is impossible for you to escape. Moreover, even if you are lucky enough to escape, the lineage of Star will definitely suffer. Oh, right. What about the Star Palace Master? Even in such a situation, he is still unwilling to show himself. Seems like he is really dead. When the scouts who hid at the void nearby and came from all the powerhouses heard those words, their hearts moved. Indeed, the lineage of Star was engaged in a close-quarters battle with the Abysmal Palace head-on. However, there was still no news from the Star Palace Master. Hence, this had confirmed the predictions of the Vientiane Tower from before. However, when Jian Wushuang heard those words, he laughed without any restraint at all, and his laughter resounded across the universe. Ha ha, what a joke. You really wish to get our Palace Master to show himself to pieces of trash like all of you? This is really a big joke. Today, there happen to be people from each and every powerhouse of the Sanctuary Alliance present. Hence, I will use the blood of the large number of experts of your Abysmal Palace to tell the world the consequences of provoking the lineage of Star. At the same time that his voice reverberated across the area, Jian Wushuang took out the One Realm Pearl with a flip of his hands. Purple energy burst forth and completely covered millions of miles of void instantly. One Realm Pearl, great formation formed. Upon seeing such a scene, the eyes of the large number of experts of the Abysmal Palace turned grave. They were not unfamiliar with such a scene. They knew that the reason why Jian Wushuang was able to destroy the Deluge Fortress completely and kill Fortress Master Hong Qian on the spot was because of the peculiar pearl that he possessed. With a thought, the pearl would create a formation and it would make it absolutely impossible for Fortress Master Hong Qian to escape. As such, he could only fight like a cornered beast. At that moment, Jian Wushuang unleashed the same move as well. However, what they did not understand was that since there was such a great disparity between their abilities and lineup, what was Jian Wushuang trying to achieve by deploying the Great Formation? Could it be? When they had just thought of that, Jian Wushuang waved his hands abruptly and bronze figures appeared in front of them out of thin air instantly. For these bronze figures, all their bodies were extremely huge. Moreover, be it their physiques or their looks, they were exactly the same as the 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers that they had just fought. However, the only difference was that these bronze figures wore bronze armor. Dao soldiers? Bronze-armored Dao soldiers? The experts of the Abysmal Palace were all stunned. They knew about the Dao soldiers. Of course, they knew the differences between a bronze-armored Dao soldier and a silver-armored Dao soldier. Logically, the level of threat of the bronze-armored Dao soldiers was far from being comparable to that of the silver-armored Dao soldiers. However, at that moment, when they saw the bronze-armored Dao soldiers, which had appeared before them, the expressions of all the experts of the Abysmal Palace turned extremely ugly. There was no choice as there were far too many bronze-armored Dao soldiers in front of them. There were so many of them. Looking at it, there was actually a total of 30 of them. Chapter 1860. Level 8. Most of the experts at the scene knew about Dao soldiers. In ancient Mysteryland, there were some places with Dao soldiers. Although the Dao soldiers were strong in power and not much weaker than an almighty, they only knew simple attacks. Hence, to the almighties at the scene, they weren't much of a threat. However, that was when there were very few Dao soldiers. Now there was a total of 30 Dao soldiers. Even if 3 teamed up could only match evenly with a Sir God, they had the fighting power of 10 Sir Gods. In addition to the 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers, Hall Master Jiyu Xin and Hall Master Nai Yun, Lineage of Stars' fighting power at Sir God level weren't much weaker than Abysmal Palace. In actual fact, Jian Wushuang had a total of 100 bronze-armored Dao soldiers, but he only took out 30 of them. If he were to take out all of his bronze-armored Dao soldiers, the experts from Abysmal Palace would show even more interesting expressions. Jian Wushuang, is this the final trick that Lineage of Star has? Palace Master Wu Luo's gaze was cold as he stared at the 30 bronze-armored Dao soldiers, but there wasn't much changed on his face. It was only 30 bronze-armored Dao soldiers, and it was still within the range of Abysmal Palace's power. Final trick? Of course not. Jian Wushuang lifted the corners of his lips, and with his willpower, the 3 Hongjun golden swords suddenly appeared simultaneously and floated before him. Palace Master Wu Luo, you should know that I am the best at the 3 golden swords. Today, I shall let them greet you. The 3 golden swords? That's funny. Palace Master Wu Luo smiled in disdain. He had watched the mirror image that showed Jian Wushuang's fight with Fortress Master Hong Qian and the others in Deluge Fortress personally. In that fight, Jian Wushuang's 3 Hongjun golden swords were really eye-catching. Any one of them contained a hit of a peak Emperor God, and it was terrifying fast speed. When they exploded in full force, they posed a great threat to an ordinary peak Emperor God. However, he wasn't worried about the 3 golden swords at all. You'll know when you try. Jian Wushuang smiled maliciously, and there was a boundless space-time power that suddenly swept out. Swoosh! 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 The 3 golden swords that floated in silence were affected by the space-time power. They quivered and shot out ferociously. They appeared in front of Palace Master Wu Luo like 3 bolts of lightning, and they shot Palace Master Wu Luo's chest one after another. Palace Master Wu Luo, who looked disdainful earlier, his eyes suddenly dilated in shock. This speed! Palace Master Wu Luo was shocked because the 3 golden lights were too fast. The speed that it displayed was much faster than back then when Jian Wushuang had used it during the fight in Deluge Fortress. With such terrifying speed, even Palace Master Wu Luo was surprised. However, Palace Master Wu Luo, who was on the 25th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, was also quiet in response. Just as the 3 golden lights burst out, he swung the hammer in his hands. The swing was as though it could break the sky directly. It contained terrifying power that could make all Emperor gods feel hopeless. Bang! 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 3 continuous hits and Palace Master Wu Luo fell back for tens of thousands of miles. He could also feel that his hands were numb. Level 8. Palace Master Wu Luo stared at Jian Wushuang. He could feel the space-time power that was given out from the 3 golden swords, and the space-time power was terrifying. Only when one's comprehension towards space-time doctrine reached the 8th level could give play to such power. Jian Wushuang, a real god, his comprehension of space-time doctrine had already reached the level 8 in Doctrine Palace? Level 8. How is it possible? Many experts from Abysmal Palace couldn't help but exclaim. Level 8 in Doctrine Palace was the comprehension standard of an ordinary emperor god. One should know that when Jian Wushuang performed the 3 golden swords during the battle in Deluge Fortress, his comprehension of space-time doctrine was only at the 7th level in Doctrine Palace, and it wasn't even at the peak of the 7th level. However, with this fierce power and ferocity of Hong Jun Golden Sword, he could match evenly with a peak emperor god. Then, it had only been over 2,000 years since the fight, but Jian Wushuang's comprehension of space-time doctrine had heightened so massively. Impossible. No matter how talented he is, no matter how ridiculously strong he was, without the assistance of opportunities, it is impossible that his comprehension towards space-time doctrine could improve so tremendously in 2,000 years. Unless he has been hiding his true power since the beginning. Palace Master Wu Luo stared and his voice became extremely cold. Jian Wushuang, you have been hiding? You only found out now? Jian Wushuang smirked coldly. Just as Palace Master Wu Luo had said, without the assistance of opportunities but merely relied on his personal comprehension, he wouldn't achieve such massive improvement in comprehension towards space-time doctrine in 2,000 years' time. The reason why the power he had displayed then was different from the fight with Deluge Fortress before was that Jian Wushuang had never revealed his true power. In the 6,000 years he had wandered in the ancient battlefield near Green Fire World, he had received many opportunities. Among them, the biggest opportunity was a miniature cave dwelling. He had comprehended in the miniature cave dwelling for 1,200 years. His comprehension of space-time doctrine had improved at an unprecedented rate. His comprehension was originally at the peak of level 6 in Doctrine Palace. However, after he had comprehended in the miniature cave dwelling, not only did his comprehension of space-time doctrine break through to the level 7 in Doctrine Palace, he continued to improve and possess the power to the level 8 in Doctrine Palace. Level 8 was the comprehension standard of an ordinary Emperor God. On top of that, his power and strength were twice as strong as Emperor God. The Hong Jun Golden Swords were scary, and also Jian Wushuang's fighting power. He was far beyond anyone's imagination. Palace Master Wu Luo, you should be glad that you are the first who gets to see my peak fighting power all these years. Today, I'll use the blood of the experts from Abysmal Palace to serve as a deterrent to everyone. Jian Wushuang's voice reverberated in the universe slowly. Arrogant. Palace Master Wu Luo humphed coldly. If I am arrogant or not, you shall watch. Jian Wushuang spoke coldly and a bolt of space-time power swept out. The 3 Hong Jun Golden Sword instantly turned into golden lightning. Then, the 3 Hong Jun Golden Swords attacked Palace Master Wu Luo, Emperor God Dan Tu, and Emperor God Luo Xian respectively from all 3 different directions. It exploded its top speed, then Emperor God Dan Tu and Emperor God Luo Xian stared. SHT. Palace Master Wu Luo's face grew grave. Although Jian Wushuang's power was far stronger than they had imagined, he was confident that he could match with him and he could withstand the 3 golden swords. He could withstand, but it didn't mean that Emperor God Dan Tu and Emperor God Luo Xian could.